People started to come out to wrestling that weren't necessarily our normal crowd or normal wrestling fans that were seeing that I was visibly queer and seeing that I was loud and kind of gay, obnoxious. They were like, this might work for us. So when I saw that happen, it became more of a positive glow of myself while still pissing off the old timers who were, seeing something that they didn't necessarily want to see.
There have always been members of the LGBTQ community involved in professional wrestling, but there has been a growth in not only out talent, but also bookers and promotions who put focus on both rising stars and on the culture itself. Trigger warning, abuse and transphobia will both be discussed during the course of this episode.
What is your history with wrestling? How did you find it? Who did you love? Who were your guys? When did you know that you wanted to throw yourself at the ground for a living?
So I'm very Southern. I grew up all over the South, and my dad was big into like Crockett NWA stuff. So growing up, it was a lot of like Four Horsemen and Flair and Dusty and Tully, and it was never presented to me as fake. And I think as I grew into this adult, I thought, well, that's not a thing people actually do. They either start that, I guess, when they're children, or they just are born into it and look like muscle gods. After college, when I got sober, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I said, look, if John Cena's doing this 300 nights a year, he's a superhuman, right? And so I had to see if it was even possible to be a wrestler. And I found my dream, I found my wish, and it's real. It hurts, and I do it a lot.
When you first started, what was your first gimmick?
So I have always been Effie. This blows people's minds. I was a little bit different in presentation when I started, but I was still under the name Effie. Some people are like, oh, you had a fake Southern accent. But the thing is, like, when I'm tired or lazy or under the influence of horticulture, I have more of a Southern accent. So I was just kind of leaning into it. And I knew that in the South where I was wrestling that people get fired up. If you're acting Southern, but you're a little off, they get real fired up about it. So it was very assumptive starting out, and I started to get more loud as I started to react with more of a babyface crowd. There were people coming to these shows that wouldn't normally come out to like redneck wrestling shows. People started to come out to wrestling that weren't necessarily our normal crowd or normal wrestling fans that were seeing that I was visibly queer and seeing that I was loud and kind of gay, obnoxious. They were like, this might work for us. So when I saw that happen, it became more of a positive glow of myself versus using the dastardly parts of queer culture to kind of make sure I stayed hated. Once they started loving me, I went to that crowd and gave them more of the babyface experience while still pissing off the old timers who were, seeing something that they didn't necessarily want to see.
What is the Effie experience for those who are uninitiated?
The easiest way I've said to put it is that Effie is a button pusher, right? So when there's no more buttons to push, Effie won't have to push anymore. And those buttons historically have been things like who's allowed to be a wrestler, what is valid wrestling, how should wrestlers be paid, how should wrestlers be presented, what is considered success to a wrestler, and being able to poke at sort of this hierarchy and system that was so ingrained into wrestling that now when you look across all the different companies and all the big names and who's really making money in wrestling, nobody really knows what they're doing. We're arguing over really crappy cable ratings. You did 50,000 more than me. I did 50,000 less to you. And we're stuck in this little wrestling world thinking we have to do things a certain way. And so now it's sort of, if I can be a little bit of a beacon of, hey, look, I pushed against this thing that you thought was a rule and it didn't break me, it didn't ruin me, and I'm still wrestling and doing things. Hopefully it opens that door for not only like new fans to come in and say, hey, this isn't the wrestling I thought, but also for wrestlers to get out in front of people and say, hey, I don't have to do this the way everybody has told me to do it.
Obviously, representation is getting better. It's not great. It's not like where it should be. What ways have you really seen a huge impact in the industry, in any way, 360? And what would you like to see going forward?
I think right now the big thing is a lot of these companies have accepted that the internet is a thing, and a lot of them have benefited from the internet being a thing, but they don't tout, God, but they don't know how to harness it, and they don't understand what they're dealing with. I mean, Twitch, for example. Twitch, I've taken a big liking to this year. But Twitch is also moving towards live events production. And they're not trying to control who runs the events. They're not trying to control the events themselves, where they're happening. What they're trying to do is get it streamed out to the world and show it to new people. Because a lot of times what we find is we're good at advertising to wrestling fans, but the rest of the world doesn't know that there are independent shows happening all around them all the time. All we have to do now is use the technology that we are figuring out and get a little bit outside of our bubble, and it would make such a big difference to the way we take in wrestling.
Who are some of the queer wrestlers that other people should really, really be paying attention to that are murdering the game right now?
Out loud, when you say this question, the first person that comes to mind is Still Life with Apricots and Pears. Still Life with Apricots and Pears is a gender non-binary professional wrestler who is also art and exists as art and is on display as art and is on tour as art. And it all meshes into this wonderful, technically sound, interesting, fun, vibrant wrestler. And I think over the next few years, when we're having this discussion over, intergender matches, we're looking at competitors who have every single one of their matches are technically intergender. When you are a gender non-binary person, you do not get to fit in with women. You do not get to fit in with men. You get to be your own person, but that means every single one of your matches is an intergender match. And so when people are saying the validity of intergender wrestling is not there, or it's akin to domestic violence, number one, you don't understand consent. And number two, you're putting such a tiny box on what professional wrestling can be. When we just look at each other as performers, we get these magical places. And years ago, Still Life may not have been comfortable in the wrestling world. And now we've been able to create a niche and create a world where not only is Still Life comfortable, Still Life is thriving, and they are taking over professional wrestling. The best wrestling is the kind people want to watch. If people are watching your stuff, cool, that's valid wrestling. But if you're trying to decide what wrestling is, and you're saying this is my little wrestling world and this is how wrestling has to be, at least look around at who you're bringing in the building, because if it's not many people, I don't think you really have a say in this battle. The shows I'm on that have intergender wrestling are sold out, are packed, are crazy. People are excited about them. But there's also a lot of traditional wrestling shows that are financially not viable that are still running, and they're still running their mouths too.
You're a businessman. You got a 5-year plan. What's Effie's 5-year plan?
Effie's plans are ridiculous. I'll say it that way. 2 or 3 years ago, I decided I wanted to have my own unisex fragrance. So I went about buying all the materials myself, the bottling, the perfumers, alcohols, the flavors, the scents, the vinyl coverings, the shipping, and I built my own perfume line. I sold it out in a month, 100 bottles. So with all of these crazy business thoughts in my head, I said, let's create an award that people can bribe me for, that they can win, and they can tell everyone they won an Effie. And if they don't know about wrestling, then it doesn't matter. It's just a cool golden award of a man's bust, and you can put it in your house and tell everybody you won it. You can win it for anything you want.
Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to talk about? I will be here as long as you like.
Yes, I just want to talk about the Big Gay Brunch because it's a weird, wild thing we're doing. So number one is me versus Priscilla Kelly in a Too Hot for TV match. The other semi-main event contest, super main event contest, is Sunny Kiss from AEW versus Cassandro, the legendary Exotico. And then with a little kick to myself, we are bringing back what I call the Twink Gauntlet. And I had the first Twink Gauntlet in Fargo, North Dakota. I had 5 twinks that I defeated, and then a bear came out and actually defeated me. So the tables were turned. This is going to be an even bigger Twink Gauntlet, and it's going to be a fucking mess. But it's a lot of queer talent, a lot of new faces, a lot of big, exciting moments.
So have you been seeing more audience that has been louder and felt more comfortable at shows, just being gay as shit?
Definitely. It's very gay. This is funny because my dad has a very odd feeling about all this, which he's very proud of me. He's very understanding of who I am, but it still confuses him a little bit, and not in an angry way or anything. And he'll call me and he said, man, somebody told me you were on a podcast the other day. They were talking about you and they said you're real good at wrestling. And I said, yeah, Dad, I'm real good at wrestling. And he said, well, do you ever do like the shows that aren't gay, or you just only do the gay shows now? And I said, Dad, the shows are gay because I'm there. I'm bringing gay people in, and they're seeing me and going, it's okay for us to be loud and freaking wildly gay. We're transforming some of these shows. These shows weren't always this loud and vibrantly queer and party-oriented. And when I look back at wrestling, this is a big thing I've been thinking about all this year. It's easy to say that wrestling was homophobic or racist or misogynistic, but at the end of the day, wrestling exists to fill the arena and fill the chairs and have people tune in. And it was reflective of our culture at the time to have these things be more racist and misogynistic and sexist and homophobic, because it reflected kind of the majority of what people were thinking. We're in the Reaganomics era. We're in the simple 70s. This was blue collar entertainment. But now if we are to follow what wrestling is supposed to be and continue bringing new people in and selling tickets and having people who want to watch it, we have to reflect our society the way it is now. We are a much more in-tune society with how people are feeling, with how people identify, with how people live their lives. And seeing that be able to financially pay off as well by providing something new and different is very rewarding, because we don't have to get stuck in the same way of selling tickets that has been there for 40 years.
Growing up, I was a Divas stan. I love the girls. China is my number one, my ultimate. To me, like as a kid, she transcended gender, and she was just this like amazing force. I love the girls, all women's wrestling. Gail Kim, Mercedes Martinez, Angel Orsini. I love, really, I'm a wrestling junkie.
What was it like having your first match?
Oh my God. So the beginning of my career, I was plagued with ribs, and there was like a real attempt to get me out of the business, because I'm like a square that can't fit in a round peg, or vice versa, whatever. The beginning of my career is not that happy, but like it gets better. Kids at home, it gets better. Over the summer, there's been a movement in wrestling called Speaking Out, and a lot of performers, mainly women, but also men, non-binary folks, queer folks, people of color, have really been coming forward about like what happens in a lot of spaces and closed doors, and kind of dismantling like the patriarchal crap that like allows abuse to happen in wrestling. And that happened to me, unfortunately. Within the first month of my training, I was abused. I was in a really bad situation that like, I'm in therapy, we're past it, we're doing good. But yeah, it was something I went through. It was really unfortunate. And I was a part of like a really toxic cult-like environment, which happens to be the thread that we've noticed in these stories of like these really bad places to train, and also like these wrestlers who would do this to young workers on the road. And I worked hard. And one of the things that helped me in the genesis of my career was building a connection with the audience at the place I was originally working. And the one thing that any wrestling promoter has to relent, has to give up, their personal point of view, is if the audience is telling them what to go with. And once I started getting on the road, traveling, making connections, doing a lot of shows, I was able to create the leverage in order to leave a toxic environment, and also like help people leave that environment as well, who were not in as bad a situation I was, but not in any way a healthy environment. If I were to tell anybody watching this, please, please, please carefully vet where you train. Don't be afraid to ask professional wrestlers. That's also trusting and hard, but asking people for opinions and looking for where places are really well established, and
right.
Always in the beginning of your career, bring a buddy.
Oh wow.
To sit and watch you train. And if there's a huge problem with that, then you don't need to train there.
So tell me about how you came up with your in-ring persona, how you came up with your gimmick.
So Billy Dixon is what I wish the men I grew up with were like. Him and we are not very similar. He's a lot more masculine than I am. He's a lot more in your face than I am. He's a lot more careless with his well-being than I am. Kyle and Billy are very different. It's hard to explain to a lot of people. They're not the same person. Billy Dixon is heavily influenced by Dusty Rhodes, who's like my number one. I love him. Really influenced by Mob Wives.
Oh yeah.
So, I'm a really big talker, really big smack talker in my matches. So when I was learning how to like cut promos and things like that, one of the things I decided to do was not watch so much wrestling and watch other reference points so I could stand out. So my favorite TV show of all time is Mob Wives. And the women on that show use such colorful language, and the way that they speak, like it's such an art to it. And they really describe things in a way no one would ever describe things. And when I started listening to that, I incorporated that in my promos, and people were like, oh my God, that's so cool. Little did they know, I'm just stealing lines from this reality show that I was obsessed with in high school.
What is your favorite Billy Dixon match?
I'm like Cher. I'm like, if you ever watch Cher interviews, she's like, I'm not a Cher fan whatsoever. And I feel the same way. I am not a Billy Dixon fan. But my favorite match I've ever had, I actually just had a couple weeks ago. I wrestled my best friend Jared Evans in a street fight for my Chocolate City Championship in Pittsburgh at my friend Envy Young's Poly Am Cult party, which we had in a trap house. So
Yeah,
that
you
was
did.
fun. That was my favorite. I went through the curtain and I was like, that's the magic. That's the magic I've been chasing.
There is now, along with, obviously, there's so much more queer rep in wrestling, and there's so much more just people doing it because no one's gonna do it for us, so we have to do it ourselves. And one part of that is how much queer culture has begun to overlap with wrestling. Things like drag or like ballroom. And so those are things that I find very interesting, and my understanding is that you do as well.
Oh yeah, girl.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
There's been a queer revolution in wrestling for many decades. I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm the first generation. I'm a part of the first generation. No, there are people that have come before me that have made it possible for me to do my thing. However, I feel like in the last 5 years, there's been a real momentum and push, and I think the right people at the right places at the right times to really keep this momentum moving. This generation, more so on the independents, but we really don't give a crap about cis heteronormativity whatsoever. We're just kind of like, we're gonna do us. And the people that we really just only care to impress are the audience. And the audience now more than ever is super vocal, and they have a say. And that's been a great help for us, is that the audience now, especially with Twitter, and the rise of influencer culture in wrestling, comes with its positives and negatives. But one of the positives is that there is a demand for representation, equity, and things that we've been really fighting for. I've been fighting for since the start of my career. I'm 25 years old. I don't want to wait till I'm 40 till we get to where we need to be. So we're gonna do this now, and you're just gonna like it or you're not, but we're gonna do this now. And I sat down, I'm like, ballroom and wrestling are the same thing. And I watched Paris' Burning, which is like the ultimate. And I'm like, yeah, wrestling's ready for this. Or we're gonna make wrestling ready for this. And we announced Paris' Bumping on Christmas Day, which is, Paris' Bumping is the first ever wrestling kiki ball in history. So Paris' Bumping is a ballroom show. And we were originally, before COVID, we were gonna have a live event, and we transformed like a small town bar into a ballroom. And I think we did a good job. You know, we didn't have an audience. We had some extras, which would be like people that came in with other people. This show is very daring, very exciting, and very much so queer. I keep watching it going, this might be too queer for wrestling, but that tells me that we're on something.
What would you say the experience of watching wrestling has been like in the past years that you've been doing it, from where you started to where it is now, in terms of embracing queer culture and queer wrestlers, queer wrestling fans, acting like we exist and we didn't just show up?
That part. I did a show 2017, and I think there was out in the business maybe under 20 of us, North America, like maybe 20. In 2020, 3 years later, I can't keep track. I'm like, oh, but now I feel old. I'm like, there's another one. And she's 19, and she's skinnier than me, and she can do flips. So it's exploded, and that's a good thing. People are out, and people have come out. And friends of mine who I had no idea were queer were coming out. If you haven't realized that wrestling is super gay to begin with, like, what we're seeing with queer wrestling fans is like, I'm so happy that they're finally feeling safe, comfortable, that there are places for them. There are places where one of the things that I think is going to be interesting is there is an undercurrent of like us versus them culture, right? And I don't believe in that. Like, I really believe that we can all like hang out and kiki. But some people don't feel that way on both sides of the aisle. I don't believe in like the cool kids table or whatever. Like, I don't like the analogy like Shirley Chisholm said, if there's not a seat for you at their table, you bring in a folding chair. I would like, respectfully, Miss Chisholm, to say you take an axe and you destroy the table and you make a picnic. because you can't have a limit to how many people can come to a picnic. There's so many talented people that, there's only so many spots in like the big companies and like the popular companies, but I want there to be more opportunities, more space there's so many talented queer people of color, women, non-binary, trans, everything. There's so many talented people who are not getting an opportunity because there's very limited spots. So if we can make more spaces, that would be so cool. I think America is leading the way to a certain extent, but I hope the other companies follow suit.
What is your history with wrestling? Like, what did you watch? How did you start? Who were your wrestlers? Tell me everything.
Sure. First off, I also want to say thank you for, putting a spotlight on a wrestler that someone might not know, such as myself and the others. Thank you for that. When I first got into wrestling, I was very, very young. I had to be like 4 or 5. And I was watching some Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair. I was watching the whole tape, but like that match, I was pretty sure this is what I was going to do. And then as I got older, I was just, by the time I was 10, I was positive. I watched everything though. I was one of those tape traders before YouTube, copy a VHS of something and mail it to someone else and they'd send me a VHS. So I was getting stuff from like Lucha Libre, Europe, a lot of Michinoku Pro and Torimon. When I turned 19 or so, I just never looked back.
So tell us about Dark Sheik.
When I first started training, they told me I had to wear a mask. But they were letting me know that because I'm Middle Eastern, I will be a sheik. And I kind of hated it because I felt like it's something I'd seen done in the 80s and I wanted to be what's next. I didn't want to be this relic, but I also wanted to get booked. So after wearing a mask for a while, I was Persian Tiger. And then at like 9/11 happened, they made me change my name to Tiger Kid. No story gimmicks, just there's a kid in a mask. And really my only goal then was to not embarrass anyone in the crowd who might also be Middle Eastern.
Right.
Because I remember going, when I went to shows as a kid, there would always be that white dude dressed as a sheik or the Arabian assassin in a ski mask or something. And when that came out, I would want to I always say, I would put my hat down and hope nobody would notice that I actually am that thing that they're booing this person for pretending to be. So I wasn't doing that. Many years later, I finally have my own show. I didn't really want to, but I felt like someone had to. I was very much dreading the idea. Yeah. But I do this show. It's called Hood Slam now. How
did crowds respond when you first started doing Hood Slam?
I put out flyers that were just like me in a lucha mask, and it said like Victory Warehouse on this day. And it didn't have an address, and it didn't really even say it was wrestling. Like a smattering of people showed up, like 40 or so. But yeah, people were kind of, I think, just there for like music and Oakland like rock scene. But it went from like 40 people. Then the next show was like 20 people. That was we always call that the Forgotten Hood Slam. So after that, we just did Hood Slam 2 again. We did the Street Fighter. We named everything Hood Slam 2 for a year. So it'd be like Hood Slam 2 Turbo, and it's Hood Slam 2 Championship Edition. And then it's like Hood Slam vs. Capcom 3D. And by the end of that year, there was 200 people there in that warehouse, and it was full. It was standing room only, and like they're rowdy too. Like it was an energy. You could feel it.
What is your favorite match? Like your favorite match that you've done? Your favorite to be in? Your favorite storyline? Everything.
I wrestled Mansoor, who's in 205 Live now. I don't know where he's usually on the Saudi Arabia specials, but he was someone that trained with us in Oakland at Stoner U. And before he went to WWE, we had a goodbye match. And it was just probably some of the best work I've ever done. He's told me I don't want to say now because he wrestles around the world, but last we talked, it was his favorite match. It wasn't that it was difficult. There was a point where I'm like, oh my God, we're still going. But it was just fun. It was good-natured fun. And also we were 2 Middle Eastern wrestlers. And neither of us were doing really like a Middle Eastern gimmick, like typical stereotype. And I was really proud of that.
From an audience perspective, and as someone who for years has loved watching wrestling, feeling like the wrestling that I was seeing presented to me was something that I loved that didn't necessarily love me back. And it does feel like there are some headways and some people doing some good work and trying to make it so that wrestling feels like it's for everyone the way that it should be. Is that something that you, and again, this is just from a fan perspective, is that something that you feel like you've noticed any, or does it feel wildly different from your perspective as a performer and as a booker?
Things are wildly different from when we started 10 years ago. People are having fun and being themselves in their entertainment, letting themselves shine instead of trying to be like something that they saw on TV that they were pressured to be again, to replicate. And that's beautiful. Like, I don't want to go wrestle. I want to wrestle everybody. I don't want to be in a women's division. But if I want to go be on TV, well, I got to go to a women's division.
Right.
And, you know, there's still those concessions that have to be made. There's still like some room to grow. And there always will be, because once we've reached like my plateau where I can say I have everything I need, well, okay, let's take it the next step now. Let's keep growing. It doesn't ever end, because wrestling is the reflection of society. And as long as society is growing, then wrestling will still need to keep matching it. Yes, I think it's much better than it used to be.
You did publicly transition or come out while you were in wrestling. If that's something that you feel cool talking about, we can. If not,
sure.
I'm down to talk for like a million more minutes about your favorite holds. Like, I'm serious.
No, I'm happy to talk about it. That's part of why I did it publicly. I wanted people like me to know that they can do it in public. They don't have to like hide who they are, which is what I was doing before.
What effect did that have on your bookings, if any?
Some people were weird about it. For the most part, people were cool. The people that booked me before booked me still. It was more like in the locker room how people treated me when I was out of town. I noticed that they were just kind of different, or they would ask me some out-of-pocket stuff. They'd be like, oh, you look different now. I'm like, yeah, like same style, so we'll be doing the same things in there. And this guy says to me, yeah, cool, as long as you don't try and grab my dick. And like my tag partner, Anton Voorhees, and my tag partner in the caution, he was like about to just stomp this person in the locker room. But I was like, let's just get through the match. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, you don't have to worry about anything like that. We're just going to call the spots now. So, you know, there's that. Luckily, there's a lot of good places like we're talking about. And I was doing my show every week, and sometimes more. So, like, if other people didn't want to book me, I'm like, that's cool. I got 2 bookings this week already. Or, like, I'll sit at home, or I'll go out of town, or I'll do something for me. I was afraid, because I thought that I would just have to stop wrestling. Or maybe there would have to be some I have to stop for a while and come back when I was finished, you know? But what I realized is I'm never finished. I'm always going to be growing. Wouldn't it be nice to other people who also had this fear if they could just see me doing it week to week in real time? So that was a big part of it for me. It was still scary as all hell. Like, I needed it's been good to me though. I'm happy. I haven't had one moment of regret. You know, life's still hard, but I'm in such a better place. If I can tell anyone like what I would do, if they can do it, if their job won't fire them and their house won't kick them out, you know, and I implore you, when you get the chance, like, live your life. It's such a breath of fresh air.
What was it like the first time that you wrestled when you were out?
Not that different, because I had been dressing as myself for a while, like for years, honestly, but then just doing it every match for like about 3 months. I put on some colorful wigs and like do the crop top, and I started not showing my nipples anymore. So
can't do that no more.
You know, so for 3 months, I was already in my outfit. I was wearing what I was going to wear. In fact, like now, I'm like, I'm not doing these fake eyelashes anymore. Like, you know, they're getting, you feel like you got to do extra to like at first, and then you like get settled. So you have all these like dresses and skirts that like I don't wear as much anymore, and I'm back to the jeans and a t-shirt. I like it. I'm having so much fun here today. Thank you.
Oh no, I am so happy that you're letting me do this. I want to talk to you about intergender wrestling, because that is something that you love intergender wrestling so incredibly much. Have you been able to do a lot of intergender matches, or have you found yourself really like stuck doing women's division matches? I've
gotten to wrestle more women, which I love, because there's so many great talents in California, like Heather Monroe, Viperous, Shakira Spears, Buggy Nova, Bryn, Sandra Moon. Like, there's just like a dozen good women that wrestle out here right now, or more, which is interesting, because like 10 years ago, there was 2. It was Christina Von Eerie and Brittany Wonder. And they wrestled all of us. Like, they wrestled everybody, every girl, and they wrestled every guy. So to see people make a stink about intergender wrestling now is weird to me. Like, we'll do hashtag intergender wrestling on stuff. Like, that's just always been wrestling to us. Like, it's weird that we gotta like label that it's cool, because that's just what we've been doing. And every woman who trains in wrestling went to a school with mostly men. So it's just silly to me that those people will like take the money of a woman who wants to train and let them fight all these dudes when they're coming up and trying to learn and they're their most vulnerable. But now that they're like solid and they got their shit together and they're trying to make a name, they want to put them in a box.
Right.
So that's weird to me, but you teach their own, you know. I'm gonna do me, and that's all I can do.